This meeting is now being recorded.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Cohort Community of Practice call. This call is with Cohort 2. We're really excited to have you all here. I've been really enjoying our weekly check-ins and learning all the wonderful things that you guys are doing, moving this process forward in your community. So welcome. Okay, there we go. Sorry, we were having a weird thing happening with our advanced slide advancer. Now we're back. Okay. So let's just briefly go over the objectives once again for a monthly community of practice calls. We really want to support your communities to have a forum where you can learn from each other and gather information from us that applies to all the Go For It communities to share your successes, questions, concerns, and strategies. I know that's always a huge benefit to community of practice calls because sometimes you're just stumped and somebody else has the answer. We want you to get some training and technical assistance between visits when appropriate, and then to include any community partners you would like to in the Go For It initiative and hear consistent messages about Go For It. So here's our agenda for today. We're going to do some updates and talk about resources that are available to you. Then we'll talk about whatever topics you want to, and then we'd like to hear from you about how things are going with your universal training, subsequent to your universal training, and the next steps in rolling out the Go For It process. And then we'll review upcoming dates that you should be aware of. So here are some great updates about Go For It. Hooray! There's only one more universal training to go for Cohort 2, and that's with Envision, who's going to be completing their training on February 9th. So yay! And then big news, Rocky Mountain Human Service completed their universal training on January 6th and had over 180 participants. And I just want to say thank you. That training was so well attended. People were so participatory. And the setup and logistics, I know, were a lot of work. So thanks to Rocky Mountain Human Services from myself, Wayla, and Lanita that were there for this activity.
Okay, good morning, everyone. This is Lanita, and I just want to draw your attention to an attachment I sent with your reminder for today's call, labeled the 3 Global Outcomes Needs Assessment. And this document hopefully is familiar to you. You probably filled this out at the end of your 2-day visit, and it's time for us to look at it and fill it out again. So please distribute it to all your service coordinators, providers, child find folks to complete and return to you by February 9th if you've already had your universal training. Otherwise, it's due 2 weeks after your universal training. So envision you have a little longer. And folks that are filling it out don't need to put a name on it if they could just write their CCB name and their role. So if they're a service coordinator or provider, child find, that's really going to help us get a sense of where things are going well in your community and where you need additional support. And I know this is a tiny version here. Hopefully some of you have this in front of you, but it's really talking about just overall if people in your community have a good understanding of what's included in each of the 3 global outcomes, what functional assessment means, and what resources are available to assist with age anchoring, the rating scale, and then it really talks about process, so thinking about gathering information for the 3 global outcomes throughout the process, being able to coordinate, discuss the ratings with families, talking about the global outcomes as an organizing framework for conversations with families, and also just the whole overall integration piece. So please, please, please encourage your folks in your community to fill this out, and then you're going to return them to your team lead. So if you have a way to scan them and upload them and send them electronically, that's great. If not, you can pop them in the mail to us and we can scan them here. So whatever's easier for you. Do we have any questions about the 3 Global Outcomes Needs Assessment? Okay. So Sue is asking if this is the exact same needs assessment. We don't see an email recently about this, but think we have an old one that is the same. So you should have received a reminder for today's call, and that was sent out, I believe, last week, and this was attached. So please use the one that was attached to that email. And if you didn't get the attachment, reach out to me and I can resend it to you, Sue.
And yeah, Sue, this is the same one that we did when we were out there.
Yes, that is true, although it has a couple of revisions, which is why I wanted to use the new one, because the old one I noticed says IEP on it in certain places, and I think it could be confusing for some of your community partners. So let me know if you don't find this one. Okay, so for many of you, the majority of you, you have completed your universal training, and we wanted to make sure that you aren't resting on your laurels and relaxing a little bit, that you're really taking some steps toward fully integrating. So that might be that you're beginning to try out the process. You may be implementing changes in other ways that will support full implementation. So we just put together some talking points around suggestions after your universal training. Many of you worked on an elevator speech, so a really short and sweet way about talking about the 3 global outcomes and this integrated process. If you haven't already done that, that is something that you can begin to do immediately, and you may want to even develop talking points to go with those. Also, any supporting materials that need to be updated, now is the time to do that. And we also would recommend that you have an internal work plan with timelines and steps and who is responsible for needed activities to fully implement. It's also a great time to think about any barriers that you might be encountering to successful integration. So if you're finding problems within the unicorn, you're finding problems within the form, you're thinking about your communities and you're hitting some resistance or questions from child finds, reach out to the EI state team for support so that we can make sure that you have the assistance you need to be successful. Also, it's time to try out different processes. So some of you have decided the way you're rolling out, you've decided how you're going to practice, how you're going to get this done. But this is also the time to make mistakes, and they're even welcomed because they really will provide you with an opportunity to make adjustments before you roll out community-wide. Checking in with your stakeholders to get a sense of their support or hesitation is important, and that goes back to this 3 Global Outcomes Integration Needs Assessment that we're asking you share with your service coordinators and providers and return to us by the 9th. So that's going to support you with this work. Review the PowerPoints that we have shared with you and dig deeper into the additional materials and resources that we shared. So we know that in the universal training, we don't always have time to go into everything that we provide you. So go back to those universal training notebooks and look at some of those additional handouts. Watch some of the videos, the Maryland video part 1 and 2, the Illinois training links that are shared as part of that universal training are phenomenal. So this is the time to really think about how you can integrate those resources into your own community training. Also, please don't be afraid to let us know if something isn't going well or if it just simply doesn't make sense. Because we need your feedback to successfully integrate these processes. And if something isn't working for your community, it may be that it's community specific, but it may be that it's a problem we need to address statewide. And so bring it to our attention and work through it. I had a conversation with a community this morning, and thinking about a different way of looking at things and trying that out is fine. But don't be afraid to do that. That doesn't mean you have to commit to it for the next 10 years. And then I just want to encourage you to start thinking about self-assessment and evaluation. We have talked about the Quality IFSP Outcomes tool, the QIO. That training will be coming your way, and we will be engaging in self-assessment as well as state verification of IFSPs. So stay tuned. I know that Amanda is putting the finishing touches on that so that tool is available.
Hi, everybody. This is Wayla. So now we just want to hear from you. We want to most of you have completed the universal training, so we want to know now what? What's going on? What's happening? What are you planning to do next? What are your timelines? And so we look forward to hearing from you. Is there somebody that wants to volunteer to go first? Otherwise I'll call on you.
This is Heather.
Hi, Heather, from StarPoint.
Yeah, so we have rolled out in 2 of our school districts so far. And,
great.
Last week, one of my team members, my speech pathologist, and I did 5 initials. Well, actually, we did 3 initials and 2 annual reviews using the new process.
How did that go?
It really went well. Families, and we had home visitors with us in 3 of the meetings, and they felt that families understood the age ranges so much better than they've understood the language about percentiles and percent of delay. And everybody, including the families, even the families that were doing reviews, felt like it was just much clearer.
And so, go ahead, Heather.
So, and I got to go through one of the ones we did with Laura yesterday and discovered that we only made 1 horrible mistake.
Oh, it wasn't that horrible. It was lovely. And I want you to talk a little bit, if you would, Heather, about how you guys have really moved forward with using the global outcomes language, both in your communications with families and in the IFSP, because I was really quite impressed with that.
We really have talked about it quite a bit as a team. We've been really trying to practice using the global outcomes language in our conversations with each other in the office.
Oh, nice.
Kind of catching, we talked about even having we sort of have a fantasy nickel jar for every time we say goal instead of outcome.
That's good.
And so people are really reminding each other. So yesterday we had a team meeting to sort of review. We only had one provider who hadn't been involved in one yet. And I heard from her service coordinator this morning that even though the IFSP they did last evening was not using the Go For It, our person who had been the most resistive to the age anchoring, who was one of the evaluators, did age anchoring beautifully, and the family was very commented on, I didn't realize she was that far behind when they gave her the age ranges.
Mm-hmm.
So we really need to work hard on this.
Mm-hmm.
So we felt it was motivating. One of the things I did to help remind me when I'm doing the SAFER to do the family assessment is I went through Laura's slide set from Laura and the slide set we had from the universal training and made some copies and cut out some of Laura's little slides that were with the reminders about how to probe deeper and the kind of questions to use and the little explanation of Go For It. And I just sort of taped some of those onto the form on various pages where I could use reminders. And that has helped me get more detailed information as part of the family assessment.
Great. I love the fact that you've enhanced the protocol to make it work better for you. Great idea. Awesome. Thank you, Heather.
Yeah.
Someone would like to go next?
I'll go. This is Pat over at Community Connections.
Hi, Pat.
Hi, Pat.
Hi. Well, we just had our early intervention council meeting and kind of talked about all of this. So we have our rollout date was January 1st. We've only had a few IFSPs that have happened since then, but a couple of the gals had been using them just for practice and trying to do the age anchoring and that sort of during the IFSP before January 1st. So we've probably had 4 or 5 instances where we've, done the new initiative. And I think it is bringing home the fact that what Laura's been telling us all along, how important family assessments are. And I think that they are really trying to get the best information they can from the family assessments and trying to make it all kind of flow. And it's a work in progress. One of the providers actually using the delay, 33.5% delay in communication, and our service coordinator was trying to encourage the Go For It language. So it's going to be a work in progress. I think our service coordinators are all on the same page as far as the language and what we're supposed to accomplish goes. But until we get some practice under our belt, I think the providers are going to be kind of stuck in their ways a bit, and just going to have to be encouraged along to do things the way we're supposed to be doing them and using the language we want to use. So.
And you planned a big community meeting for your providers?
Yeah, we're going to have a retreat in February, February 9th actually, where all of the providers should be together in one room, and we will definitely be talking about all of this along with a lot of other things that are pertinent to their work. But it'll be a 6-hour retreat, so we will definitely have time to go over and get a pulse of where they're at with what they're supposed to be doing.
So, Pat, this is Juanita, and you mentioned that it's really bringing home the fact of how important family assessments are. Can you say a little bit more about what is it you're seeing that is driving that home?
Well, I think the fact that the family assessment feeds into every other part of the IFSP at this point is kind of hitting home, and yeah, you don't have to ask a lot of questions after you do that family assessment. You should be getting a lot of the information that's going on the IFSP just from what you've already talked about. So
Yeah,
it's making that process more important, whereas before it was just something maybe that, you know, was kind of maybe not skimmed over, but not, you know, looked at in depth like they're trying to do now to kind of see. And one of the comments that Trish made was that, yeah, we went to an IFSP for a child who had a speech delay and found out that the mom has a seizure disorder and the baby doesn't sleep all night, and all of these other things came up that didn't have anything to do with speech. So she thought that was a pretty rich family assessment because she, you know, was able to help the family in other ways besides a speech delay. So
great example. That's great. And then I just have one other question for you, Pat. You mentioned to me about a provider who used the Miser cost. Am I right about that?
She was actually using the Larimer County.
Oh, okay. But she felt that it went well.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about the one that used the wrong language.
No.
Yeah, the one that used the one that used the Miser cause was over with Deborah and Pagosa, and she did think that it went really well. Yeah, she thought that it flowed pretty well. She had a couple of stumbling points, but, you know, it was the first one that she had tried, so that's to be expected. But she was very positive about it.
Great.
Hey, guys, and this is Alicia, one of the service coordinators. I just had one little thing I wanted to throw in there, too. I did the new Go For It, you know, the whole IFSP process, the family assessment and the Go For It piece yesterday. And what I really felt was, one of the things I really felt was awesome about it was we did it at a child care, and mom and the teacher were both involved, and the family assessment there were so many times where both of them were like, whoa, I didn't know that he was doing that.
I love that.
Oh, yeah, so it was really kind of, I just felt like it was richer, like to use the same word that Pat used, and I feel like the flow of the meeting is just so much richer and more natural. I felt really good about it, and you know, even if my provider was saying that this little guy had a 33% delay in expressive communication, I had to bring him back to the global outcomes language. I think that'll just be a process, but everything else felt really good to me.
Ooh, I got chills.
and you know, that isn't any different than that's super exciting, Alicia. And you know, I think bringing providers back to the language is going to take time. And that's the same with using person-first language. I feel like we have to mirror that for people still. And just, you know, if they say the term goal, that you're saying, oh, so the IFSP outcome, and you know, just gently infusing that in there for the family. So that's super exciting.
Great. So we have a question in the chat from Heather, and I'm just going to answer it out loud. She says, a question our providers have asked is if we're doing an annual using the Go For It IFSP form, if they need to do the exit child outcome summary rating the old way. So there's two pieces to that. If you're using the new form, you're going to do the rating the way you would in the new process. So no, you don't do it with a separate form. You're going to do it right with the global outcomes page that's on the IFSP. The only caveat to that is if the entry rating, child outcome summary rating, was in the children tab under the provider database, you're still going to have to go back and enter the exit rating there. But it's going to be in the unicorn as well.
Yeah, so you're still going to do the new, so let's even say that you did an entry rating and you put it in the provider database. That rating is in there. And as Laura said, you'll need to put the exit in there. You're still going to fill out the global outcomes page moving forward with the strengths and needs, and you're going to conduct the rating and print that out for the family. In terms of collecting data, you're going to have to put the exit in the provider database.
But as far as supporting evidence and that kind of thing that you had on the old form, you don't need to do that anymore because now the strengths and needs are your supporting evidence on the global outcomes page.
So unfortunately, we're going to be living in two worlds a little bit until the provider database moves into the unicorn.
But the process is the new process.
Does that answer your question, Heather?
It does. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Who would like to go next?
This is Melinda from Colorado Blue Sky.
Hi, Melinda.
Hi. So we just recently started using the new form, and we've only had a couple of them that have been conducted with the new form. And we started with a kind of a training with a friend of a service coordinator that had a young child, and we went through the family assessment and doing the miser cost at the same time. So that's the way that we're trying it now. We had one that came back, the child was only 6 months old. We had put it in an Excel spreadsheet and cut out the parts where they were older than 6 months so that you didn't have so many pages to flip through. And the provider reported that went really well. They often report the miser cost, there's just so many pages to flip through that it's hard to keep up with the conversation and mark those things at the same time. But then we had one where the child was 24 months, and that was harder to narrow down because we don't know, how far back their skills go, how foundational they are. And so that was a little bit harder for the provider to flip through. They like the language, and everybody seems to feel like this makes sense, but it's kind of working out the kinks. One of the things that when we decided to go forward, in the format, it has you state the parent's concerns and then go and summarize the strengths and needs. But we felt like the flow of it would be more like a funnel if we state the strengths and needs, and of course those concerns are going to come up in the needs as well, and then narrow it even further down to, okay, this is what I heard you say, that this might be something you we're trying to really avoid from the word concern, because automatically red flags, and we're trying to stay away from the words routines, because if somebody doesn't have a routine, they feel like stressed out of trying to make a routine.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I know that in training, I was often told by my trainer that you can use time of day or activity instead of routine for the same reason.
And concerns, we find that a lot of parents don't like to say that they have a concerns because that's kind of reflecting poorly even on their parenting, you know. So yeah, we're saying maybe this is something that you would like early intervention to work on, you know, or maybe this is a part of the day that you would like to see differently. And then Sue has a question.
Okay. Those are good alternate wording. I like the way you're thinking through that, Melinda. Excellent. Go ahead, Sue.
One thing that a lot of us have noticed is when we ask, we use the SAFER, but when we ask a family to rate it from 1 to 5, that just doesn't seem something that families really like to do, and it seems to sometimes take a lot of time, you know, and I don't know, I'm wondering why is that necessary? I mean, I know it's part of the protocol, I guess we have to do it, but I don't know if anyone else experienced that.
The reason it's part of the protocol is just because it takes the judgment away so that you don't kind of impose your own standard on what the family is saying. You might hear a routine that sounds horrible and they rate it 0 to 12. It is part of the protocol. If you are, I'd like to hear from others if this is a stumbling block for them as well, because if it is, we'd like to give some more consideration about words you might use or some guidance we might provide to make that more smooth. Anyone else having a problem with the rating?
This is Beth at RMHS. I've heard a lot of feedback that families really struggle with the rating for maybe the first one or two routines that we talk about, but as we go on, they start to get more comfortable. But I think it's hard for our service coordinators to really find a way to explain that without imposing some of their opinions.
I see. So maybe some language around that.
Tends to be a challenge, especially for some of our newer coordinators who are, less familiar with families, children, development, all of that.
I'd like to say we were talking about this with Becky Cohort, who went through RBI training, and she had a really great idea that I think we want to try is, how they have those rate your pain level and they have spaces, maybe something like that, little spaces 1 through 5, and how that so the parents can see, and a 1 is they're pulling their hair out, and and
I think that's great.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Melinda, you were Melinda, I want to kind of go back to something you said earlier, because you're breaking up a little bit on the phone, and I think what you said was really interesting about. It sounded like to me you were saying that you all are trying to finalize the concerns after you're doing the global outcomes page. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what we're testing out. And basically we're summarizing.
Okay, we're having a little bit of problem. You're breaking up a little bit, but maybe if you can type in the chat. But I think we've heard from other communities that seems to be something that is helpful to be able to kind of finalize those concerns after you talk about the strengths and needs on the global outcomes page, and we just want to confirm that that's fine. That's
one thing that we'll probably want to do a little more discussion around this, because the reason, and I know we talked about this, Melinda, the reason we put that page comes right out of the family assessment is because those concerns should be reflected directly from the family assessment. Now, talking about those further after you develop the strengths and needs and the global outcomes, absolutely, that should be happening. We just have to do some consideration to thinking about that those concerns and priorities really come directly out of the family assessment, so we don't want to lose track of that.
Yeah, so what I was saying, I switched phones. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, better.
Okay, good. Sorry, I was calling on my cell phone. So what I was saying is we're saying that we want to think of the strengths and needs as a summarization as well as the concerns, and just really think of it as a funnel. We have all this information from the family assessment. We want to synthesize that information into the strengths and needs, and then further, pull that out into the concerns. We're trying with the providers, since we're trying that they're the ones leading the SAFER, and the service coordinator is the one documenting, because they say that they get so much more rich information in the IFSP when the service coordinator isn't trying to do both. And since the SAFER is really laid out and easy to follow, we feel that that's totally okay. So the provider is leading the meeting, and at the same time, they have a sheet that has the strengths and needs on one side and then the concerns on the other side. And we're asking them to just kind of jot down notes as they're, doing the interview, the service coordinator is also documenting the entire SAFER, and then going back and saying, okay, this is what I heard you say, you know, and going into the global outcomes, and then also with the concerns. So.
Great. That's great. We love hearing these different kinds of examples and ways that you all are trying to make the process really work for all of your community as well as families. So thank you.
Yeah.
Let's go to another community. Is there another one that would like to share? What about Beth from Rocky Mountain? We'd like to hear from you, especially regarding perhaps your universal training. I know it was overwhelming for everybody, but
yeah, my universal training was a little big. I think we had about 196 people. For some reason, I feel like that was a count.
Yeah.
Well, that's more than we thought. Now we really feel tired.
I think I got that based on how many books were left over.
I see.
Right.
So it went well. It was, you know, it really solidified what community-specific trainings do we need to hold to really implement here at RMHS. You know, we're gonna identify service coordinator roles versus provider roles as it comes to age anchoring and, you know, completing the SAFER versus, you know, I think at the universal training there was some discussion about how you can determine that at the meeting. We're just too big to make those determinations at the beginning of every meeting. So right now I'm planning for implementation on February 27th. And I am scheduling some makeup sessions for my providers who were not able to attend the Universal. Also scheduling some trainings for providers around what are our changes to implement here at RMHS, as well as identifying what the service coordinators need more support on, primarily around the 3 global outcomes and how to organize child skills, strengths and needs and their skills up into those 3 buckets.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's all I have.
That's great.
Beth, we're working on recording the sections separately for the universal training. We're doing it on Zoom recordings. It's not, of course, as interactive as an in-person training would be, but we do encourage them to work in teams, which is really the best way to go through that universal training. And so we have most of them completed, and you know, they're not perfect. They're not like professionally done or anything like that.
We did them.
Yeah, because we did them, and but we are willing to share those with you so you can use them in your community if you wish. It just basically goes through the PowerPoint and talks through the activities.
Yeah,
and they're available to everyone on this call.
Yeah, Lenita and I did speak about that, and that is my plan. I'm going to go through those, and I'm going to kind of determine what I want providers to do independently, and then what we're going to do in the in-person makeup sessions.
Great.
Okay, so currently they're not posted anywhere, so we'll get those completed, posted, and sent out to you as soon as possible.
Fantastic.
All right. Thank you so much. What about, is there anybody from TRE on the line? How about Blue Peak? And then I left Envision for last because I know that you guys haven't had your universal training, but did you want to share something?
Hi, this is Jenny. Monty's not here right now, but we are continuing our weekly check-ins with Lenita and starting to finalize some things. We're just excited, I guess, and a little anxious for the universal training. We have some pretty good numbers so far, so we're just, you know, hoping that we can continue to encourage providers to attend so we can all kind of be on the same page.
Yeah, I think we're close to 100 actually with your training. And we've also, just so you know, we've invited some other communities that were in Cohort 1 to attend that have kind of changed leadership or had need a refresher or something. So just so if you see some people that you don't recognize, we hope that's okay with you for them to be able to come and get some information.
Yeah, and the spreadsheet that Tracy sends every week is very helpful because it kind of gives us an idea of who we need to, reach out more to and encourage them to attend.
Great. Well, we're excited to be coming out there next month, so looking forward to it.
All
right,
as well.
I'm going to move on. These are some dates. We've got the Universal Training for Envision coming up on February 9th, and then our next Community of Practice call is Thursday, February 16th from 11:30 to 12:30. Did you want to say anything about that, Juanita? Okay. And that, again, is only Cohort 2, so it'll just be you guys. So we'll be excited to hear an update. This is our graphic for the phone calls, so that is showing there on February 16th. A reminder about the call on April 20th. On that call, we're going to have Cohort 1, Cohort 2, and our new Cohort 3 participants. You all may know from our kind of frazzledness here that we have started our phone calls and our information with Cohort 3. So they're excited to get going and really excited to learn from you all. So thank you for your wisdom that you're able to share with them.
Yes, we will be, you're going to be barely able to take a breath, and we're going to be asking you, just as we asked Cohort 1 to share kind of what worked and what didn't work and advice, while it's still fresh on your mind, be thinking about what advice you'll have for Cohort 3 as they begin implementing, because they're going to be eager to hear what's working for you guys. And I know that you're still in the thick of it. So for some of you, you'll be maybe barely implementing by April.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so as far as, slides, that's all we have for you today, but we want to open it up for questions or any other comments that you have for your other members of your cohort or for us. Anything? Bueller?
What?
Bueller. It's like, oh.
Nobody knows that. All these references we do not understand.
Sorry. Ferris Bueller's Day Off. All right. Okay. If nothing else, then we are really, really happy that you were able to join us today. And thank you all so much we know that you are working so hard. You're giving so much thought and consideration and really care to this process. And we know that you all want to do it so right. And we want to say we want to do it right too, but we also know that there's going to be bumps along the way. And we do welcome your feedback. We like hearing about we don't like hearing that there are challenges, but we like that you're telling us, because we do want to try to figure out ways to help you with those. Also, one other note, I know we've been saying this for a long time, but we are trying to get our IFSP process as far as the family assessment, moving into concerns and priorities, global outcomes, and IFSP outcomes. We really are trying to get that videotaped in a good professional way so that you all can use those. So as soon as that's available, we'll let you know. It's still going to probably be a couple months at least, but we are working toward that end.
We are also, we mentioned this on the last TA call, we're in the midst of reviewing applications, and we will be hiring an additional person for our team, so that will help and give you support. If you have items that you want to make sure that we discuss on the Community of Practice call, please let your team lead know so we can add it as a point of discussion, and that's anything at all Go For It related. So please reach out to us and let us know if there are things you would like to discuss that we are not addressing or you just want to talk more about.
All right, so with that, we'll let you go. Hope you have a great Thursday and rest of your week, and we'll talk to you all soon.
All things change, and then they can go the other way. And then